Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'll be showing you how to draft a simple straight skirt pattern using your own measurement. This is a beginner friendly video and I will guide you through each step. And then by the end of this video, you will have your own custom pattern ready to sew something stylish and beautiful. So let's get right into it. So the materials I'll be needing for this tutorial are measuring tape, marker, a masking tape, a curve ruler, a scissors, and of course a pattern paper. So first I'll begin by marking a start line at 1 inch from the top edge of the pattern paper, and then I'll use my ruler to draw a straight line across the paper. So the next thing I'll be doing is to mark my hip line. For this tutorial, I'll be using 10 inches. So I'll mark 10 inches down from the start line to mark the hip line. So after marking the hip line, I'll determine the skirt length, which for this tutorial, I'll be using 23 inches. I'll also go ahead and add 2 inches for hemming allowance, making it the total length of 25 inches. This is because I'm using an Ankara fabric. And then I'll connect the dots by drawing a straight line across. And then I'll label all the lines: waistline, hip line, skirt length, and then hemming allowance. So now let's move to the darts. I'll start from the center front of the pattern paper at the waistline to calculate the dart position. In order to get your darts, you need to divide your nipple to nipple measurement by 2. For mine is 7 inches, divided by 2 is 3.5 inches. So I'll mark 3.5 inches on both the waist and the hip line, and then draw a vertical line to connect them. From the hip line, I'll measure 2 inches upward along this line. And then I'll mark ½ inch on each side of the darts at the waistline, and then connect this point to the 2 inches mark with slanted lines to form the dart shape. So the next thing I'll be doing is to mark the circumference of my body measurement divided by 4. In this tutorial, I'll be using the waist and the hip measurements. I'm working with a waist measurement of 29 inches, which divided by 4 will give me 7.25 inches. And then I'll go ahead and add 1 inch to replace the darts. And then 2 inches for seam allowance. This is because I'm using Ankara and will be lining the fabric, which in total will give me 10.25 inches. For the hip measurement, I'll be using 38 inches. 38 divided by 4 is 9.5 plus 2 inches allowance. I'll also be using the hip measurement for the hemline. This is because I'm making a straight skirt. So the next thing I'll be doing is to connect the dots together. So notice I'm only connecting the seam allowance dots I created. I'll be using my curve ruler to connect the waist to the hip line. So notice how I'm placing my curve ruler. I'm being careful not to make the curve too sharp. I just want to keep it smooth and slightly curved for a natural fit. And then I'll draw a straight line from the hip to the hemline. And then I'll label the dart, the waist circumference, dart allowance, and seam allowance. So from the center front, I'll measure 1 inch down from the waistline. And then I'll draw a slanted line from the waist to this new point using a ruler. This is called a balance factor. This just helps your skirt to sit and hang better when worn. So when you're wearing your skirt, it just gives it a perfect fit and a balance effect. So after that, I'll be closing the darts using a masking tape. So just watch what I'm doing so you can be able to understand. So after taping it down, you'll notice that the line may shift slightly. So I just had to redraw and smooth out the line to correct it. So now I'm moving on to the back skirt block using the same pattern paper. So I'll start by dividing the hip measurement by 4, and then I'll add 3 inches to this new section so I can draw out the back pattern properly. So you can see that I'm minusing the 1 inch because of the darts I created. So I'm just going to mark my hip measurement divided by 4 plus 3 inches, which will give me 12.5 inches. So I'll be drawing a straight line so I can be able to divide the back and the front. There'll be a demarcation between the back and the front parts. And then I'll label this the side, and then this part's the center front. For the back block, I'm extending the slanted line that I made earlier, and then I'll be marking 2 inches out from the center back. This is just to create a space for my zip allowance, and then after doing that, I'll connect the dots with a straight line. So I'll be repeating the same thing I did on the front pattern. I'll start by marking my dart, which is 7 inches divided by 2, 3.5 inches, and then I'll draw a straight line, and then I'll mark ½ inch on each side of the dart at the waistline, and then I'll take 2 inches up from the hip line and then connect this with a slanted line in order to form my darts. And then I'll add my waist and hip measurements. Remember to add your dart allowance and sewing allowance of 2 inches. I'll repeat the same thing on the hip line and also on the hem line, and then I'll connect the dots. Remember, it's the sewing allowance dots that we are connecting. So now I'll be marking my vent, which is also known as a slit. For this tutorial, I'll be using 7 inches. Notice, remember that I have 2 inches allowance, so at the end of the day, it might not be up to this 7 inches. I don't want my vent to be too high. So the next thing I'll be doing is to take my zip allowance, which is 1.5 inches because it's Ankara, and then I'll draw a straight line to connect the dots. And then I'll be labeling this the zipper allowance. Now it's time to cut. I'll go ahead and cut this pattern paper. I'll start by cutting from the lower part, and then I'll also cut to separate the front and the back pattern. When I get to the darts area at the center front, I'll cut carefully on the line I retraced. Then I'll finish up by cutting the rest of the pattern. And then I'll go ahead to remove the masking tape. Remember, we're not cutting this dart on foot. The dart is going to be visible on the skirt. And then I'll also go ahead to cut the back pattern. Now we have both the front and back skirt block ready. In my next video, I will show you how to cut and sew a straight skirt using this exact pattern paper. Thank you so much for watching, and if you've stayed until this point, I really appreciate it. Please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section. See you in the next tutorial.